I want to introduce some ideas about eugenics as it developed over time, and eugenics in some ways as it's practiced today. And so if we go back and kind of look at the 19th century, and I think you can certainly go back and say that in some ways eugenics was being practiced in ancient times, et cetera. But I think if we look at the modern advent of eugenics anyway, in the 19th century, we really had a shift in that science was replacing religion as starting to be a dominant force. And one of the implications of that, for example, if you lived in a class system or in a royalty system, before it was sort of, I'm the king and you're not because God wants it that way. Now we shifted, we needed a new explanation for the same phenomenon, and now I could say, I'm the king and you're not because nature wants it that way, that I'm more highly evolved in some way. And so power inequities started to be explained by scientific differences as opposed to religious differences. I think we also see this, for example, you had, in the olden days, you had Martin Luther, who said that it was okay to kill changelings because they didn't have a soul. In modern bioethics, we talk about the lack of sentience and whether or not that means people don't qualify for personhood, and if they don't qualify for personhood, they don't have moral status. Or we talk about the lack of quality of life. And I'm not entirely sure that we can define quality of life or measure quality of life in some objective way any more than we can a soul, but we're a lot more comfortable today with the quality of life explanation than the soul explanation. The theory of evolution certainly had a major impact, and I guess the way that it turned into eugenics in some way is through the concept, in a sense, of meta-evolution. So if you take Darwin's theory the way that it's explained most of the time, it talks about a natural process in which the relationship between the environment and organisms in the environment favor some and don't favor others, and those that survive, multiply, etc., are considered to be the fittest. Having discovered that, to some extent, we could have said, that's fine, now we know what's going on. But being the kind of people we are, what we tended to say is, that's fine, now how can we take control of this process? And so one of the things that happened is we began to say, rather than whoever survives is the fittest, that we can identify who is the fittest, who in many cases that meant noble of English birth, white, etc., and that we would, in a sense, help evolution achieve that. And of course, one of the explanations that we have over time is that because man has interfered in some way with the natural process of evolution, that therefore we need to compensate by that, since we can somehow understand what it is that nature was trying to do, and we can make that happen as a result of our manipulation of the process. I would simply point to other places where we have not been particularly successful in trying to replace natural processes with scientific control. And if you look at, for example, our idea of managing forests, for example, in taking over and trying to do better than nature, we developed forests where we had rows of trees of the same age lined up waiting for massive forest fires to occur. And so there is some question about whether our interfering with these natural processes actually in some way produces an outcome that's better even in terms of our own expectations, let alone whatever we might conceive of as the naturally desirable one. It's also interesting, Darwin was very clear in talking about his understanding of evolution and how he came to that understanding, that his concept was based heavily in Malthus, that talked about population control and competition, and that population control needed to be controlled in a sense by creating harsh conditions. And so it's interesting because Malthus presented, in a sense, an economic model, a model in which he was talking about how resources would be shared or dispersed. And it's interesting now, a lot of times we make that reference to social Darwinism in terms of some of the practices of highly capitalistic, competitive models of the ways that things should work out there. But I think when you look at that influence, you can also see that in some way our view of evolution maybe sort of started from a capitalistic model. So maybe we should talk about biological capitalism rather than social Darwinism.